My sister sent me a birthday package. But my commander knew it wasn't just a gift. The room was the kind of place designed to strip a person of all comfort, cold, sterile, and sealed tight from the outside world. It smelled faintly of metal and disinfectant. Across the steel table sat my sister Chloe, the woman who had spent her entire life dazzling every room she entered, now reduced to a tear-streaked shadow of herself. 2 military police officers stood like statues at her back, their silence heavier than any accusation. She kept glancing at me, searching for the familiar ally who had always played the quiet, forgiving little sister. But this time I gave her nothing. No smile, no comfort, only stillness. The door slid open with a hiss. Colonel Evans stepped inside, his movements as precise as his reputation. He didn't spare Chloe a glance. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, locked solely on me. In his hand was a thin, unmarked file that he set on the table with a deliberate thud. The sound echoed in the room, final and absolute. "Specialist Sharma," he said, his voice flat, stripped of warmth. "Counterintelligence requires your official assessment. Is this individual, he didn't use her name, a threat, a witting accomplice, or merely a useful idiot?" The words dropped between us like lead, the air suddenly too heavy to breathe. I saw the moment they landed, the instant Chloe's confident mask began to crack. Her gaze darted between me and the colonel, confusion flooding into realization. And then fear. Because in that moment she understood. I wasn't the one being interrogated. I was part of the tribunal. To understand how we ended up in that interrogation room, you have to understand the 2 worlds I've lived in and how violently they've always collided in my mind. In my family's world, Chloe was the sun. She was the bright magnetic one, spinning stories that kept everyone in orbit. At every holiday, every gathering, the stage was hers. Last Christmas was no different. She held court in our parents' living room, waving her phone like a trophy as she recounted how she'd made a soda brand's hashtag trend for 12 straight hours. My father beamed with pride, the corners of his mouth lifting in that rare, satisfied smile he saved for achievements he could brag about at cocktail parties. I sat at the far end of the table, cradling a glass of water, letting the invisible curtain fall between us as it always did. When her story ended, I dared to step into the light, mentioning casually that I'd scored in the top 1% on the Defense Language Aptitude Battery. The words hung in the air like an offering. My father's brow furrowed not with pride, but with confusion. "What's a dilab?" he asked, the syllables mangled, the meaning dismissed before it could take root. He patted my hand with that condescending finality I knew too well. "That's nice, honey. But Chloe's out there in the real world making things happen." What he didn't know, what none of them cared to know, was that my real world was a place of locked doors and no windows where the hum of servers replaced laughter and precision replaced applause. In a room the size of a modest kitchen, bathed in the blue light of cascading encrypted data, I wasn't Quiet Anya. I was Echo 7, a signals intelligence analyst trusted with secrets that never made the news. I'd caught breaches before they could explode into international incidents. I'd traced whispers and static to the very hands of hostile actors. But to my family, it was all invisible. Chloe's world was public, photogenic, measurable in likes and shares. Mine was quiet, classified, and deliberately unseen. And because they couldn't see it, they never valued it. Until the day Chloe's carelessness forced my 2 worlds to meet. It started like any other slow afternoon in the mailroom of our high-security signals intelligence facility, a place where packages were rare and personal mail even rarer. I was chatting quietly with a couple of colleagues when the clerk waved me over, grinning as he slid a brightly wrapped box across the counter. I knew instantly it was from Chloe. The paper was a riot of colors, the kind of over-the-top wrapping she favored, loud and unapologetic. For a moment, a small, unexpected warmth spread through me. Maybe this time the gift was just a gift. That hope evaporated the second a shadow fell across the package. Colonel Evans stood there, his normally relaxed demeanor replaced by something harder, sharper. "Step away, Specialist Sharma," he said, his voice low but absolute. I froze mid-reach. "Sir," he didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the shipping label. My eyes followed, and the warmth in my chest turned to ice. In Chloe's familiar looping handwriting were the words, "From your favorite little spy." It was a joke, one she'd been making for years, harmless to her. But in our world, those words weren't harmless. They were a known trigger phrase flagged in our watch list database, a phrase used by a hostile intelligence network we'd been tracking for months. Evans didn't waste time. The package was sealed in an evidence bag and whisked away. Protocol was already in motion, Operation Red Flag. In the debriefing room, the colonel laid it out plainly. The system didn't have a sense of humor. It didn't care about intent. It saw a possible breach, and it required a full counterintelligence investigation. And because the sender was my sister, I was given a choice. We could dismiss it as a non-credible domestic incident, or we could follow procedure to the letter. It would have been easy to protect her to bury it. But easy wasn't what I'd signed up for. My entire career was built on impartiality, on the belief that the rules existed for a reason. So I chose. And with that choice, the investigation began not on a stranger, but on my own sister. The moment I authorized the investigation, my role shifted from sister to analyst. I sat at a secure terminal, the glow of the screen painting my face in cold light, and began building Chloe's preliminary file. I entered her full name, address, occupation, marketing manager, with a high public profile, and then turned to the one thing she prized most, her social media. Post after post scrolled by, each one a breadcrumb for an intelligence officer. Photos of her on vacation, geo-tagged check-ins at upscale restaurants, jokes she'd made about me being her little spy broadcast to thousands of followers without a second thought. Every detail went into the system. Not twisted, not embellished, just fed into the analytical engine that would assess her as if she were anyone else. Because here she was. The machine didn't see my sister. It saw a potential link in an active counterintelligence investigation. And once the system started pulling threads, the net closed fast. Within hours, military police were dispatched to her apartment. She was escorted to base under the kind of watch reserved for persons of interest, confusion and indignation written across her face. I watched from behind one-way glass as she entered interrogation room 3, a perfectly neutral gray box that offered no comfort. At first, she tried to fill the silence, pacing, muttering about a big mistake, rehearsing how she'd talk her way out. In her world, charm and volume could bulldoze any problem. But this wasn't her world anymore. Here, the walls didn't bend to her energy. The rules were written in black and white, and they were unbreakable. The door opened, and Colonel Evans stepped inside. His posture was a wall. His voice, stripped to official cadence, didn't acknowledge her protests. "You are the sender of a package that triggered a level 4 security alert," he said. For the first time, I saw the bravado in her eyes falter. She was starting to realize the truth. She wasn't here as my sister. She was here as a suspect. And she hadn't even seen me yet. The door opened again, and this time, it was me. I didn't enter as the quiet sister Chloe thought she knew. I stepped in wearing my crisp Army service uniform, ribbons aligned with precision insignia catching the sterile light. In my hand, I carried a blue folder stamped with a bright red classified cover sheet. I closed the door behind me and walked to stand beside Colonel Evans, a united front. I didn't look at her. Not yet. "Sir," I began, my voice steady, almost clinical. "I've completed the preliminary threat assessment on the individual." The word individual hung in the air like a blade. Not Chloe, not my sister. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her mouth part slightly, confusion fighting with disbelief. She was trying to reconcile the person standing before her with the version she'd always kept in her shadow. I opened the folder and read, my tone methodical. The phrase written on the package is a recognition signal used by an SVR sleeper cell we have been tracking for 18 months. Its arrival at this facility, addressed to a secure asset, triggered an immediate compromise protocol. 3 deep cover agents were pulled from the field as a precaution. Her face went pale, the air leaving her lungs in a silent gasp. Colonel Evans stepped forward, delivering the final blow. "Your sister is not a clerk. She is Specialist Sharma Callsign, Echo 7 lead analyst for the counterintelligence division that is now investigating you. And she is the one who put your name on this report." The words hit her like a physical strike. For the first time in our lives, I saw Chloe truly see me, not as the quiet, forgettable sibling at the edge of family photos, but as someone with authority, consequence, and power far beyond her comprehension. The room was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system. I finally met her eyes, my gaze cold and unflinching. Actions have consequences. And this time, she wasn't shielded from them. 6 hours later, the heavy door to the interrogation room opened and Chloe stepped out. She was unrecognizable from the woman who had walked in earlier. The sharpness in her eyes was gone, replaced by a haunted blankness. Her makeup had smudged into faint shadows under her eyes, and in her hands she clutched 2 thin stacks of paper, a signed national security letter and a non-disclosure agreement that would bind her to silence for the rest of her life. She wasn't just Chloe, the social media manager, anymore. She was now a person with an official government file, someone who had been warned in writing that her actions had national security implications. I stood down the hallway speaking with 2 fellow analysts reviewing a diagram on a tablet. She hesitated, then took a small, tentative step toward me. Her lips parted, ready to say something, maybe an apology, maybe an explanation. I didn't give her the chance. I met her gaze for a fraction of a second, gave her a slight, almost imperceptible nod of dismissal, then turned my back completely. My voice lowered as I focused again on my colleague's analysis. We walked away together, our conversation a quiet murmur of mission parameters and operational priorities, leaving Chloe standing alone in the long, sterile corridor. In that moment, she was the invisible one, and I realized I had never truly needed her to see me at all. 6 months later, I stood at a podium in a secure auditorium, the silver bar of a lieutenant now gleaming on my uniform. Before me sat a class of new intelligence analysts, their notebooks open, eyes bright with focus.